When my mother told me not to come home for Thanksgiving, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't sound angry. She just sounded finished with me. And somehow that hurt more than yelling ever could. She called me 3 days before Thanksgiving, while I was standing in my small apartment in Boston, holding a grocery list I would never use. Her voice came through the phone flat and careful, like she had practiced the words before dialing my number. She said, "Don't come home this year. Your sister doesn't want drama." Then she went quiet, waiting for me to understand that this was not a discussion. Welcome to Auntie Rose Narrates. Before today's story of betrayal and self-discovery, please subscribe and hit like to help these stories be heard. Drop your city or country in the comments. It always warms my heart. Now let's begin. I remember staring at the wall as if it might explain something she refused to. I waited for her to say more. I waited for an apology. I waited for love to show up in her voice the way it never had when I needed it most. But the silence stretched, and I realized that was all she planned to give me. After the call ended, I sat down on the edge of my bed and listened to the city outside my window. Cars passed. Someone laughed on the sidewalk. Life kept moving, even though something inside me had just stopped. I was 42 years old, and in that moment, I felt like the little girl I used to be, the one always trying to fit into her own family. Thanksgiving came anyway. It always does. I put on my coat and walked into the cold, telling myself I didn't care. I told myself I was fine. But when I sat alone in a quiet restaurant, surrounded by families passing plates and sharing stories, my chest felt heavy. I ordered food I barely tasted and smiled at people who didn't know me because crying felt like giving up. That night, as I sat there pretending to be strong, I had no idea my life was about to change. I didn't know that the strangers at the next table, people who owed me nothing, would see me in a way my own parents never had. I didn't know that years later, those same strangers would stand beside me at my wedding, while the people who raised me watched from a distance. All I knew then was this simple truth, that sometimes the door that closes is not the end of the story. Sometimes it is the quiet beginning of a different kind of family. I was born into a family that looked complete from the outside. 2 parents, 2 daughters, a small brick house in a quiet neighborhood. We were an African-American family living in the United States, doing our best, at least on the surface. People used to say we were lucky. My parents worked hard. The bills were paid. Food was always on the table. But love, the kind that makes you feel safe and chosen, was unevenly shared. My sister, Danielle, came into the world 3 years after me. From the moment she arrived, the air in our house changed. My mother softened in ways I had never seen before. My father laughed louder. Everything became about the baby. I was told I was the older one now, the strong one, the one who should understand. I tried to understand. I really did doubt as children. Danielle and I shared a room. 2 beds, 2 dressers, 1 window. But even then, we lived very different lives. She cried and someone came running. I cried and was told to be quiet. When she made mistakes, they were brushed away. When I did, they were remembered. No one said it out loud, but I felt it every day. I was the extra piece, the difficult one, the one who needed too much. I learned early how to stay out of the way. I learned how to make myself smaller. I cleaned without being asked. I got good grades. I smiled even when my feelings hurt. I believed that if I tried harder, one day my parents would look at me the way they looked at her. With pride, with warmth, with ease. Holidays were the hardest. They were supposed to bring families together, but they only made the differences clearer. Danielle sat beside my mother in the kitchen, learning recipes, laughing, tasting things straight from the spoon. I was sent to set the table or watch from the doorway. My father praised her for helping. He thanked me for being useful. When we grew older, nothing really changed. Danielle stayed close to home. She needed advice. She needed help. She needed comfort. My parents were always there. I was the one who moved away for college. I was proud of that, but it also felt like proof to them that I didn't need much. So they gave me even less. I married once in my early 30s. It didn't last. When it ended, I went through the pain quietly. Danielle had gone through breakups too, but hers were family events. My mother stayed with her. My father checked in every day. When my marriage ended, my mother said, "These things happen," and changed the subject. I told myself not to be bitter. I told myself this was just how my family was. Still, I kept trying. I called every Sunday. I drove home for birthdays and holidays. I brought gifts. I listened. I apologized even when I wasn't sure what I had done wrong. I wanted to belong. I wanted to feel like their daughter, not a guest. Danielle, on the other hand, always seemed tired of me. She spoke to me with impatience, like I was something she had outgrown. When I visited, she rolled her eyes when I talked. She corrected me in front of people. If I disagreed with her, she said I was causing problems. My parents rarely stepped in. Silence became their answer as years passed. That silence grew heavier. Conversations became shorter. Invitations became fewer. I was often the last to know things. New jobs, new plans, important decisions. I heard about them after they happened. When I asked why, my mother said, it just didn't come up. By the time I moved to Boston for work, I was already used to feeling distant. Still, I thought holidays were different. Holidays were family rules written in stone. No matter what, you came home. No matter what, there was a seat at the table. I held onto that belief like a child holds onto a blanket. Thanksgiving was always my favorite, even when it hurt. I liked the quiet gratitude of it. The smell of food. The pause before winter. Every year, I went home hoping something would shift. That my parents would see me. That my sister would soften. That time would heal what words never had. 7 years ago, I was planning that Thanksgiving like I always did. I had already requested time off from work. I had looked up train tickets. I had even bought a small gift from my mother, something simple I knew she would like. In my mind, I was already there, helping in the kitchen, pretending everything was fine. Then the phone rang. My mother's voice that day was calm, but distant. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask about my trip. She went straight to the point. She said Danielle was stressed. She said Danielle didn't want tension. She said it would be better if I stayed away this year. I asked what I had done. She said, "It's not about that." I asked if we could talk about it. She said, "There's nothing to talk about." I waited for her to say she loved me. She did ID in single quotes T. After that call, I replayed my life like a quiet movie in my head. Every ignored feeling, every swallowed word, every time I told myself to be patient, I realized something then that took me years to fully accept. I wasn't being pushed away because of one mistake. I was being pushed away because I had never truly been let in. Boston became very quiet that week. The city prepared for Thanksgiving like any other place. Store windows filled with warm lights. Restaurants advertised special dinners. People talked about travel plans. And I walked through it all feeling like I was floating, untethered. I told a few coworkers I wasn't going home. I kept my explanation simple. Plans changed. That's what people say when the truth feels too heavy. No one pressed. Life moved on. On Thanksgiving Day, I woke up early out of habit. I sat on my bed and stared at my phone, half expecting it to ring. It didn't. I made coffee and drank it slowly, listening to the hum of the heater. I told myself I would treat the day like any other, but my body knew better. That afternoon, I put on my coat and walked to a nearby restaurant. I didn't want to sit alone in my apartment. I didn't want to cook for one. The restaurant was warm and full. Families filled the tables. Children laughed. Elders spoke softly. Plates passed from hand to hand. I sat at a small table by myself near a family I didn't know. I watched them without meaning to. They were laughing, arguing gently, sharing food. Nothing special. Everything special. I felt a quiet ache settle into my chest. I didn't know it then, but that moment, that ordinary, lonely moment, was the last chapter of one part of my life. And the first page of another. I didn't plan to speak to anyone that Thanksgiving afternoon. I thought I would eat, pay, and leave quietly. That was my plan. Just get through the day without breaking. But plans change in small ways, the kind you don't see coming until they are already happening. The family at the table next to mine kept glancing over at me. Not in a rude way, not in a curious way, more like concern. I noticed it and looked away. I didn't want pity. I had already carried enough of that feeling through my life. At one point, the woman at that table leaned slightly toward me and smiled. It was a gentle smile, the kind that doesn't ask questions. She said softly, "Happy Thanksgiving." Her voice was warm, like she meant it. I smiled back and said, "Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving." That should have been the end of it. But something in my voice must have given me away. A few minutes later, their son pulled out a chair and asked, "Ma'am, would you like to join us? No one should eat alone today." His words were simple. No pressure. Just an open door. I hesitated. Everything in me said I should say no. I had learned my whole life not to take up space where I wasn't invited. But something else, something tired and lonely, whispered that it was okay to accept kindness once. So I nodded. That meal changed something in me. Not all at once, just a little crack. They didn't ask why I was alone. They didn't push. They talked about everyday things, work, food, weather. The woman laughed easily. The man listened more than he spoke. They treated me like I belonged there. When I left that restaurant, I felt lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because someone had seen me. Heavier because I realized how little of that I had felt before. In the days that followed, I didn't hear from my parents. No text, no call. Thanksgiving passed like a quiet test I failed without knowing there were rules. I told myself not to expect anything. Expectations had only ever led to disappointment. A week later, my mother finally called. She spoke like nothing unusual had happened. She asked about work. She asked about the weather. I waited for her to ask how I was. She didn't. I told her I spent Thanksgiving in Boston. She said, "That's probably for the best." Those words stayed with me. Not loud, not cruel. Just final. As winter settled in, the distance between us grew without effort. I stopped calling every Sunday. I waited to see if they would notice. Weeks passed. No one asked why I had gone quiet. That silence said more than any argument ever could. Danielle and I barely spoke at all. When we did, it felt forced. Short messages, polite words, no warmth. Once, I tried to ask her directly what I had done. She replied hours later with one sentence, "You always make things harder than they need to be." I stared at my phone for a long time after that. I searched my memory for moments where I had tried to explain myself, tried to be honest, tried to be part of things. Maybe to her, my existence alone felt like effort. Months went by. Then years. Life moved forward in quiet ways. I focused on my work. I built routines. I filled my time with things that didn't ask me to feel too much. Every now and then, I met the family from that Thanksgiving again. It started with a coffee, then a dinner, then birthdays. Slowly, gently, they became part of my life. They asked about my family sometimes. I never said much. I didn't want to sound bitter. I didn't want to explain something I was still trying to understand myself. I just said, "We're not very close." They nodded. They didn't push. Meanwhile, my parents stayed connected to Danielle's life in ways that felt familiar. I saw pictures online, holidays, smiles, togetherness. I was always missing from the frame. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. Then I stopped looking altogether. The real tension didn't come from one big fight. It came from 1,000 small reminders. Not being told about a family gathering, hearing about an illness after it passed, learning about plans after they were already made. Each one stung just enough to remind me where I stood. One summer, I finally asked my mother why things were this way. We were on the phone. The conversation was calm. Too calm. She said, "You're independent. You always have been." I said, "That doesn't mean I don't need you." She paused and said, "We all do the best we can." That was her answer. Not denial. Not apology. Just acceptance of the gap between us. I hung up and cried quietly in my apartment. Not loud, not messy. Just the kind of crying that happens when you realize something is not going to change. As time passed, I noticed something else. The more distance I created to protect myself, the easier it seemed for them. No one chased me. No one asked me to come back. It felt like I had made their lives simpler by stepping aside. That realization hurt more than rejection. It meant my absence was not a loss to them. Then came the call that shifted everything again. My mother called to tell me Danielle was engaged. Her voice was excited, proud. She spoke quickly, sharing details. The ring, the date, the plans. I listened and congratulated her. When she finished, I waited. I thought maybe she would say something else. She didn't. I asked, "Will I be invited?" She hesitated, just for a second, but I heard it. She said, "We'll see how things are." I understood then. My place in the family was conditional. Always had been. After that, I stopped hoping for reconciliation. I stopped waiting for apologies. I focused on the life I was building. A quieter life, a steadier one, with people who showed up without needing to be reminded. Years later, when I met the man who would become my husband, I didn't tell my parents right away. Not because I wanted to hurt them, but because I didn't want their distance to touch something that felt so good. When I finally told them, my mother said, "That's nice." Danielle said nothing. Planning my wedding made everything clearer. I realized I had to choose who would stand beside me, who would walk with me, who truly knew my story. The family from that Thanksgiving never hesitated. They asked how they could help. They listened. They showed up. Slowly, without ceremony, they became what my heart had been missing. As the wedding date grew closer, I wondered if my parents would come, if they would reach out, if something would finally soften. They didn't. And somewhere deep inside me, a quiet truth settled in. The conflict I had been living with my whole life was about to reach its breaking point. Not with shouting, not with anger, but with one choice that would change everything. Because soon they would see what it meant to lose a daughter without ever meaning to. The turning point did not come in one loud moment. It came slowly, the way dawn comes when you are too tired to notice the night leaving. By the time I understood what was happening, something inside me had already shifted. Wedding planning has a strange way of making things clear. It forces you to ask questions you have avoided your whole life. Who walks you down the aisle? Who stands beside you? Who speaks for you when you are too emotional to speak for yourself? These were not small details. They were mirrors, showing me the truth of my relationships, When my fiancé asked me who my parents were in the planning documents, I hesitated. The question was simple. The answer was not. I stared at the form longer than I needed to. He noticed and gently said, "We can do this any way you want." His voice carried no pressure, just care. That moment broke something open inside me. I realized I had spent my whole life preparing for people who were never preparing for me. I decided to call my mother, not to accuse, not to beg, just to speak honestly, maybe for the first time. I told her I was getting married. I told her the date. I told her where. I waited for joy to rise in her voice. She said, "That's good news." Then she asked, "Is Danielle involved?" The question landed heavier than she knew. I said, "I don't know. I haven't heard from her." My mother paused. Then she said, "Well, weddings can be stressful. We don't want problems." Those words again. Problems, drama, as if I were something that disrupted peace simply by existing. I asked her if she planned to come. She said she needed to talk to my father. She said she needed time. She said she would get back to me. She didn't. Weeks passed. Invitations went out. Decisions were made. I had to choose who would stand in places of honor. And slowly, without bitterness, I stopped leaving space for people who weren't stepping forward. The family from Thanksgiving stepped in quietly. The woman helped me choose flowers. The man asked if I needed help with anything. Their son stood beside my fiancé like they had known each other for years. No one announced it. No one replaced anyone out loud. It just happened naturally, the way love does when it is allowed to grow. Then came the call I wasn't prepared for. 2 weeks before my wedding, my sister called me. We hadn't spoken in months. Her voice was controlled, almost polite. She said, "Mom told me you didn't invite us." I said, "I sent invitations." She said, "You didn't follow up." I felt something tighten in my chest. I said, "I've been following up my whole life." There was silence. Then she sighed and said, "This is exactly what I mean. You make everything emotional." That sentence was the breaking point. I realized then that no explanation would ever be enough. No honesty would ever feel reasonable to them. My pain was always seen as inconvenience. My silence as peace. My presence as a problem. I told her calmly, "This is my wedding. I need to feel safe." She replied, "Then maybe we shouldn't come." And just like that, the choice was made. After the call ended, I sat alone in my living room. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there, breathing, feeling the weight lift and settle at the same time. I had spent decades trying to earn something that should have been given freely. And in that moment, I finally stopped trying. The betrayal wasn't that they didn't come. The betrayal was that they never really had. On the morning of my wedding, I woke up calm. That surprised me. I expected sadness. I expected regret. But what I felt was clarity. The people around me moved gently, carefully, like they understood the importance of the day. As I got dressed, the woman from Thanksgiving stood beside me, fixing my necklace with shaking hands. She looked at me and said, "We are so proud of you." Her voice cracked when she said it. Those words reached places my parents' words never had. At the ceremony, when the officiant asked who gives this woman, there was no pause, no confusion. The man from Thanksgiving stepped forward with quiet confidence. No one questioned it. No one whispered. It felt right in a way I had never felt before. Then, as I stood there, I saw them. My parents were standing at the back. Uninvited. Not angry. Not loud, just watching. For a moment, our eyes met. My mother looked older, smaller. My father's face was unreadable. They stood together, uncertain, like guests who had arrived too late. I didn't wave. I didn't turn away. I simply continued, That was the moment everything broke and healed at the same time. They saw it then. Not in words, but in truth. They saw that I had built a life without them. That someone else stood where they once assumed they always would. That love, once neglected, does not wait forever. I walked down the aisle steady and sure. Not because I was unhurt, but because I was finally free. During the reception, my parents stayed near the edge of the room. People greeted them politely, unsure of who they were. No one announced them. No one made space. They were guests, not anchors. When it was time for the speeches, the woman from Thanksgiving spoke. She talked about the first day she met me, about kindness, about chosen family. Her words were gentle but powerful. The room listened. I didn't look at my parents while she spoke. I didn't need to. Later, my mother approached me quietly. Her eyes were wet. Her voice trembled. She said, "I didn't realize." She stopped there. I looked at her and said softly, "I know." That was all. Some realizations come too late to change the past, but they can still change the future. That day marked the end of my waiting. The end of my hoping for something different from people who had shown me who they were. It was not revenge. It was not punishment. It was acceptance. And in that acceptance, I found peace. The turning point was not when they showed up. It was when I realized I no longer needed them to. After the wedding ended and the guests slowly drifted away, I stood alone for a moment in the empty hall. Chairs were pushed back. Flowers leaned tiredly in their vases. The music had stopped. It felt like the deep breath after a long cry, when your body is finally quiet, but your heart is still catching up. That was when the weight of everything settled in. Not sadness exactly. Not joy either. Something softer. Something honest. In the days that followed, I expected to feel broken. I expected regret to creep in during the quiet hours of the night. I expected questions to circle my thoughts. But instead, I felt steady. For the first time in my life, I was not wondering what I should have done differently to be loved. I had chosen peace. And peace, I learned, is not loud. My parents didn't reach out right away. I didn't reach out either. There was a calm distance between us, like a lake after a storm. Nothing needed to be said urgently. That was new for me. I had always felt responsible for fixing things, smoothing things over, making sure everyone else was comfortable. Now I let the silence exist. When my mother finally called, her voice was quieter than I remembered, slower. She asked how married life was. She said the wedding was beautiful. She didn't mention the aisle. She didn't mention the speeches. But I knew she had seen them. I thanked her. That was all. After that call, I sat for a long time thinking about forgiveness. Not the kind people talk about in big words. Not the kind that asks you to forget, but the kind that lets you breathe again. Forgiveness, I realized, is not saying what happened was okay. It is saying I will not carry it forever. I didn't forgive my parents because they apologized. They didn't. I forgave them because I was tired of carrying the ache of wanting them to be different. Little by little, I let go of the version of family I had imagined. The one where love came easily. The one where I didn't have to earn my place. That version never existed. And mourning, it was part of healing. My sister never reached out. Not after the wedding. Not after the photos. At first, that hurt in a dull way. Then it didn't. Some relationships end not with words, but with understanding. I stopped waiting for her to change. Instead, I leaned into the family that had grown quietly around me. The family who showed up without needing reminders. The family who listened without judgment. The family who loved without conditions. The woman from Thanksgiving began calling me my daughter, without asking if it was okay. The first time she said it, I felt something loosen inside my chest. Like a knot I didn't know I was holding had finally undone. The man from Thanksgiving checked in on me like a father does. Not with advice, just presence. You okay? He'd ask. And when I said yes, he believed me. These were small things, ordinary things, but they filled spaces I had lived with empty for so long that I didn't know they could be full. Over time, my relationship with my parents shifted into something new, something quieter. We spoke occasionally, carefully, without expectations. They asked about my work, about my health. They did not ask to reclaim roles they had abandoned, and I did not offer them. There was a strange relief in that honesty. One afternoon, months later, my mother said something unexpected. She said, "I didn't know you felt so alone." Her voice wasn't defensive, just sad. I paused before answering. I chose my words gently. I said, "I was alone for a long time, but I'm not anymore." She didn't argue. She didn't correct me. She just said, "I see that now." That was enough. Closure does not always look like reconciliation. Sometimes it looks like acceptance. Sometimes it looks like understanding without closeness. And sometimes it looks like choosing not to reopen wounds just to prove they exist. Learn that day that love does not disappear when you stop chasing it. It appears where it is freely given. Looking back, I don't feel bitterness about that Thanksgiving anymore. I feel gratitude, because being told not to come home forced me to find where home truly was. Home became laughter that welcomed me without questions. Home became a table where my presence was not a problem. Home became people who chose me even when they didn't have to. If my parents had never pushed me away, I might never have found that truth is quiet. But it is powerful. Today, when I think about family, I no longer think in terms of blood or obligation. I think in terms of safety, of warmth, of who stands beside you when no one is watching. I don't tell this story to shame anyone. I tell it because I know there are others sitting alone in restaurants on holidays, wondering what they did wrong. I want them to know this. Sometimes the family you were born into cannot love you the way you need. And sometimes the family you find will love you better than you ever imagined. Letting go is not giving up. It is making room. And in that room, something beautiful can grow. When I think back on that phone call years ago, the one that told me not to come home, it no longer feels sharp. Time has softened its edges. What remains is not the hurt, but the understanding that grew from it. Some moments break your heart only so it can open in a different direction. I used to believe that love was something you earned by being patient, quiet, and understanding. I believed that if I tried hard enough, one day I would be chosen without having to ask. But life taught me something gentler and truer. Love that needs you to disappear is not love meant to keep you. The family I found did not replace my past. They did not erase it. They simply showed me another way to belong. A way that did not require shrinking myself. A way that did not ask me to be grateful for crumbs. With them, I learned that being seen is not something you have to fight for. My parents are still part of my story. They always will be, but they no longer hold the center of it. That space is filled with people who show up, who listen, who care without conditions. And that feels like enough. If you are listening to this and you feel like the outsider in your own family, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not too much. You are not the problem. Sometimes the place you come from cannot hold who you are becoming, and that is not a failure. It is a beginning. Family is not always the people who share your name. Sometimes it is the people who share your silence, the ones who sit beside you without needing explanations, the ones who invite you in when the door you expected to open stays closed. I no longer dread holidays. I no longer count who called and who didn't. I measure my life now by peace, by laughter at the table, by the quiet joy of knowing I belong exactly where I am. If there is a lesson in my story, it is a simple one. Do not beg for a seat at tables that make you feel unwanted. Somewhere there is a place where your presence will be celebrated, not tolerated, and when you find it, hold it gently. Because sometimes losing what you thought was home is how you finally find it. That is how my story ends. Not with anger, not with regret, but with gratitude, warmth, and hope.